an individual, as this may breach the rights of that individual and breach data protection laws. This is a formal committee meeting and will use the published agenda. Members of the public can speak during open session, but not at other times. And a reminder, please, to members to mute their microphones whilst they're not speaking. Thank you all for joining. Let's make a start. So item 1, apologies for absence. We have received no apologies. Item 2, to receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to both disclosable pecuniary interest and non-pecuniary interest. Does any member have anything to declare, please? No. Okay, moving on. Item 3, public open session, to adjourn for a period of 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the committee. Each speaker will be asked to give their name to the chairman, and that will be recorded in the minutes. Each speaker will be allowed 1 3-minute slot. We have a few members of the public joining, so if you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand now. Okay, I'm not receiving any indication. Moving on then, item 4, invited speaker. We don't have an invited speaker this week. Item 5, minutes of meetings. So for members to receive the minutes of the Town Centre Management meeting held on the 6th of October, it says at the offices of the Town Council, but we know that that was actually on Zoom. So we're going to go through the minutes, firstly for accuracy. So if members could please take a look at the minutes as we go through. So I'm starting on page 1 for accuracy, please. Anything on page 1? Anything on page 2? Anything on page 3? And finally, anything on page 4? That's including the exempt items. No? Okay. Can we move these as a correct record then, please?
Move.
Thank you. So item 6 then, so matters arising from these minutes. So we'll go through the minutes again, and if any member has any matters arising, please indicate. So I'm on page 1, any matters arising. I think it's actually numbered page 4 or something like that on the printout, but the first page of the minutes, page 1, page 2. Councillor Strawn.
Yes, under matters arising, number 5, as reference to a potential taxi rank, I don't recollect in the presentation made to the council there was any mention of a taxi rank. So have we got an update on that?
Not at this point. So discussions have been continuing over the transport interchange, and until some of that is finalised, it's going to be difficult to allocate a piece of land. I mean, ideally, there'd be some kind of taxi service close to the station, but we need to see what that looks like with the design. My understanding is that the interchange there's going to be potentially quite a radical redrawing that's subject to senior input from Central Beds Council. At the point at which we have some visibility over that, and we can perhaps we can pick up those discussions on the taxi rank. If it's included, great. If not, then we can take the conversations that we intend to start around the future of Century House and incorporate it into those conversations. So I think we're a couple of months away from a good conversation about it, but it certainly hasn't been forgotten.
Thank you.
So I'm still on page 2. Any further matters arising on page 2? No, okay. Page 3, any matters arising on page 3? No, and finally page 4, last page. Any matters arising? Peter?
Can I ask Simon to do a brief update in regard to public conveniences?
Do we have that on the agenda? We have that on the agenda for this evening, I think. Item 8. Yeah.
We're okay then. Okay, thanks.
That's okay. So we can provide that update under 8F. Desperate though we are to hear about the public conveniences. Have to wait. Okay, so no more matters arising on page 4. Okay, so that was item 6. I'm moving on. Item 7 then. So items for consideration. For members to consider a preliminary list of medium or large scale town centre events for 2021, as well as to agree how to proceed with this list and to discuss the possibility of a working group to oversee the delivery. So we have a report which has come from the Town Centre Operations Manager, which summarises a list of potential events. I stress the word potential, and that's all to be sourced from the £15,000 Town Centre budget. Just before we start on this, stressing the words medium to large scale. The sense when we discussed this was that our town centre could probably benefit from a bit of ambition when it comes to events. So that's what we're trying to get at here. Let me open the floor then, please. Any comments, please, from members? Councillor North.
Yeah, one of the events listed is Street Food Heroes. Can we know a bit more about exactly what that means?
Yes, so Street Food Heroes, we've had several Street Food Hero events in the past. They were very well attended by members of the public. These stretch back to, I'm trying to think when we had the first one, it probably will have been around April last year, perhaps we did a couple the autumn before.
Well, do you mean all these food stalls coming then?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. There's a bit of music. There's 7 or 8 food vans with ranges of food, tables and chairs out, usually outside Surfing Cafe. Did you want to add anything to that, Simon? Was that a fair description?
Yes, thank you. I have spoken to the proprietor of Street Food Heroes, and we've got the first Friday of every month is booked for us. So I got in there fairly quickly because no one else has. Which actually ties in quite nicely with the bank holidays that are coming up. So the first one will actually be Good Friday.
Great. No, super. Thank you. Yes, they have been very well attended. Councillor Woodhead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick point. I'm really pleased to see the Made in the Wade events perhaps coming into the marketplace in the town centre, and it's good that we can possibly prize them away from the Weatherly Centre, because I think they do attract a lot of people and a very perhaps a different sort of person that may not necessarily come in always to the town centre. So I think it's about broadening that group of people and also just using the marketplace for what it's for. So I think it's nice that we can have a different audience and a different range of stalls and activities. So I think certainly the Made in the Wade I would give a definite thumbs up to.
Great. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of events that I think would be on there anyway normally, and that's the St George's Day Parade and also Remembrance Day Parade. I think they'd be quite appropriately in the agenda, but also I'm just wondering whether there's any thoughts about teenage markets, which we did enter into an arrangement with a couple of years ago, and they seem to have just died a death.
That's firstly, you're right on both of those. I'll come to Councillor Knight and Pullinger in a moment. There is one thing I think we need to be careful with this agenda item is thinking about the scope of it, because there is inevitably some overlap with our market offering and the market working group that we all have already established. My view, for what it's worth, is that something like a teenage market is probably something that would accompany the regular Saturday market rather than an event in its own right. But I think that's very useful input for the market working group, and we have an agenda item coming up this evening to address that. So perhaps we can bring that in then, Councillor Strawn. I'll come to Councillor Knight, please.
Thank you. So some good suggestions this evening and a really positive list there, which is I think quite exciting. I think it would be helpful to have a working group. I think there's quite a lot of work to do for some of the more ambitious events that are suggested here. So I think that may be helpful. I wonder whether such a working group should include representation from some businesses in the town centre. I don't know whether the Chamber of Trade is appropriate, but I wonder if it should be a slightly broader working group. But of course, also recognise we have the markets working group, and again wonder whether there's an opportunity for one working group to address both, or whether they should be two different working groups. So I'd certainly welcome thoughts on that.
Sure. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with Councillor Knight. I think we should probably have a working group, particularly to look at some of the particularly large events. So I'm not thinking things like Street Food Heroes or Made in the Wade, but more like the VJ and VJ Day delayed celebrations, the Easter Sunday, in particular the Beer and Music Festival. Those sorts of events I think are really good things to do, but they will need a lot of organising, which wouldn't necessarily need to sit all on the shoulders of BTC staff. We could bring voluntary organisations in to support us and things as well. So I think there's definitely room there for members to get involved in a working group to look at some of the detail around those sorts of events. To Councillor Strawn's point about St George's Day in particular, I'll declare my interest now as the District Commissioner for Scouts, who organises that event. It very much will depend on what the Scouts COVID restrictions are by April. Hopefully everything will be back to normal and allow us to hold that event. But the honest answer is we haven't even thought about starting to plan an event for that in Scouting at this point. So in terms of who should, coming back to the proposal from Councillor Knight around the working group, I'm not sure it necessarily needs to be the same working group as the market, but I think we obviously have to have links between the two in order that there isn't a conflict between what both groups are trying to do. And I do like the idea of bringing some external people into it, whether that's people from businesses in the town, from voluntary organisations, the Carnival Committee, whoever it might be that's appropriate.
Thank you for that. I'll summarise in a moment. Councillor Orban, please.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the biggest event that we've had so far has obviously been the Christmas fair, because we draw many people there. So it'd be really nice to see some summer equivalents of those. So the Beer and Music Festival is in addition to the carnival, that is. So the Beer and Music Festival that's on the list is potentially one of those events. I'd like some consideration to be given, and maybe that could be part of the same event, to some open air theatre or something along those lines. So yeah, it's trying to draw people in the summer, I think, to an equivalent of the Christmas thing. That's what we should be aiming at.
I think you're right. I'll come to Councillor Pullinger again in a moment. Something that members will be aware that I circulated an email maybe nearly a month ago now, actually asking for thoughts and as to what potential events could look like. And I think something that has come up in conversation several times is we have two big events that draw crowds other than sort of Remembrance Sunday. One is the Carnival, which is not really us, and then the other is obviously the Christmas Fair, and finding one or two others which could complement those would be potentially a massive boost for the centre. And I know others have been to the likes of Bullstock and seen what a boost it gives. And one thing I know I'm cognizant of is working groups are not always easy things, and we feel a bit like death by working group at the moment. But for something as big as this, it's not. We can't start planning in April. That will probably be too late. I'd be interested as to the staff's view on some of this in a moment as well. But Councillor Pullinger, you wanted to come back.
Yeah, it was just on the open air theatre idea from Councillor Arbone. So it's linked to St George's Day in a way, but when I used to live in Crawley, the Scouts there organised a St George's Day parade in a similar way that that we do in Biggleswade. But the town essentially organised the St George's Day event in the town centre on the same day, which had things like open air theatre and stalls and and what have you. So that's maybe something to think about.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Russell.
I'd just like to ask Shuttleworth to be approached, because I had an informal conversation a few months ago, and I think they would be quite happy and would like the idea of joining in something on the Market Square and maybe bringing some of their vehicles and other exhibits onto the Market Square as part of an event, whatever that event might be. So can I just ask that we keep that in mind and that we approach Shuttleworth as appropriate, please?
That certainly sounds doable and very sensible as well. There are, I know their events draw a lot of people over to Shuttleworth, and be interested whether they would be interested in bringing some of that over here. Peter or Simon, do you have any comments on any of this? With anything that's been said by members?
I mean, I think that it's perfectly sensible to have. I know we've got a few working groups running at the moment, and it's but I think that's the right approach. It doesn't do any harm to do that. I think it probably doesn't necessarily automatically link to the market, so maybe a different set of members would be interesting. But I would think it would be an officer member group plus, you know, and any other interested parties who'd like to contribute, you know, whatever. So it seems the right approach anyway. And a very exciting list, is there not? There's a lot to do here.
Absolutely, there is. Councillor Russell?
We were talking about possibly inviting the Chamber of Trade, and I've just been told that Phil Sheldon is to become the new chairman of the Chamber of Trade. And of course, we know him as a colleague councillor in the last session. So again, Phil Sheldon would be the person to approach. And he obviously has a business in Hitchin Street, so he knows exactly what's needed in the town centre.
Okay. Do we have a proposal on the table then, please? Councillor Knight, did you make a proposal? Or
okay, I'll try and tighten it up a little bit then. So I'd like to propose we form a working group to review the events and to dig into some of the detail on some of the specific events, and that we invite the chairperson of the Chamber of Trade to participate in that working group and any other interested parties.
Thank you. Okay, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Pullinger. Okay, are there any further comments on this then? So we have a proposal for a working group. Again, I hate to say from the chair, but we have had working groups in the past which have comprised the committee and some, which are not really working groups. Again, this is something which is spanning into next year. This working group is going to have to meet a few times between now and the spring. So we haven't got a limit on numbers, but let's be cognizant of that when voting. That's certainly how we're operating other working groups anyway. So are there any last comments? No. Okay, well then we'll move to a vote. So the proposal is, as Councillor Knight said. All those in favour, please. That looks to be unanimous. Thank you. Now that we've established that we need a working group, do we have any volunteers who would like to put themselves forward to be part of this working group in organising these events? Councillor Woodhead, Pullinger, Alban and Knight and Thomas. Okay, that's 5, 6. Cognizant that this is getting quite, okay. We've got a list of names there, Peter. We don't necessarily need to I
mean, I don't think there's a perfect number, but between sort of 5 or 6 kind of feels about right, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, I wouldn't mind being involved as chairman of the committee as well. So we'll take this discussion further offline. We've got a show of hands and we've got the working group. So I think let's be honest, we probably, given the amount of work that we have on at the moment, this is probably something to discuss very early in the new year, but probably not something to do this side of Christmas, given some of the other events which are going on between now and then, which we will move on to now. So thank you for that. We'll continue that conversation and ask for further members to help form that working group. I'm moving on then. Items for information. So This is the Christmas offering, so we're going to cover a few things here. So we have a list of to receive a list of scheduled events across the Christmas period, including confirmed dates with the expanded market, Santa's Grotto, etc. I think that was circulated for members to provide some feedback when we can, and also the update on the promotions for the events. So what's the best way to do this? Simon, Peter, can I hand over to you to introduce some of this, please?
Simon, do you want to do what we normally do? Do you want to highlight the main contents of the report, and we can do a twosome? Yeah.
Yes, there is a post that's gone out onto Facebook and also onto the website. Members received a copy of that this afternoon. It shows that the light show will be done 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. on every Friday and Saturday from the 4th of December through to the 19th of December, and then the 23rd of December and the 24th, which are Wednesday and Thursday. The reason that the Wednesday and Thursday have appeared is because obviously we're just about to come out of the second national lockdown. So I discussed this with the provider of the light show, and they suggested that we do it on the Wednesday and Thursday, so everything goes right up to Christmas. On there it also states about please adhere to social distancing in open spaces. I've met with them this afternoon, and they're going to be starting to set everything up on Thursday evening, or Thursday, from early Thursday morning through to Thursday evening, programming the light show so that it runs fairly quickly on the Friday. Santa's Grotto, Father Christmas, I've been in contact with him to make sure that Saturday the 12th and 19th will be on Market Square within the Charter Market. The grotto is currently being built, and
Simon,
there will
can I
be.
interrupt? Do you have anything visually to display so that members can get a sense of what we've done?
I haven't got it with me.
You haven't?
It's in my car.
That's unfortunate.
Yes, it's. I will send that round. Pictorial.
It's very impressive. Very
views.
impressive. Yeah.
There will be a pictorial
share.
view for members to see. In fact, I'll put it round to all members of council so they can see that.
And obviously the new log cabin is reusable each year.
Yes,
it's
it will be. It's made.
Yeah.
It's made of Foamex, which is what we use for our signs. It is easily to be. We can easily clean it. It's easily stored. It's printed on and will be good to go for the next 10 years.
And what's
so
also,
it's not something.
What's also nice, Simon, isn't it, is that we've got, it looks very impressive from the outside, but equally impressive inside. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's printed on both sides.
So that, from a young child's perspective, I think it's something that they're going to really enjoy. Yep. So
yes,
good investment.
Comments. Thank you for that, Simon and Peter. Comments, please, members. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So really looking forward to seeing the decorations and light show on Friday, and my thanks to all the staff who have been working tirelessly on that. Certainly been seeing a lot of activity around the tree today, getting that ready. One resident contacted me today who lives nearby and uses the car park behind Subway in the town centre. and they obviously saw the announced events and wondered if the town council had any plans to shut the square to traffic on Friday or Saturday evenings. And I was wondering if I could get an answer for them, please, just so they can determine where to park their car accordingly and make sure they don't get blocked in. And the other question I had, obviously after the sort of initial performances this weekend, where we may see quite a few people in town, hopefully not too many, it's trying to strike that balance with social distancing. I wondered if there were any plans to promote the performances to sort of the wider community outside of Biggleswade, and any ideas about how we might do that to attract people from adjacent towns and villages to come to Biggleswade.
Do you want to pick up the parking bit, Simon, first?
Yes, we will be shutting off the road, but only for the period that we'll be running the light show.
So just to be clear, so access will be prohibited between 5 and 8 p.m. on Fridays and Saturday evenings then?
Yes.
Would it be possible?
I have received an email this afternoon, which I'll be responding to. And I will make sure that all the residents of Merchant House know that that's what's going to be happening.
That's great, thank you, Simon. And in terms on the promotion, sort of wider promotion,
Simon, do you want to take?
Will obviously there are a lot of groups or a lot of people that are outside of Biggleswade that do access social media, so we will make sure that gets spread across further afield.
Thank you.
I think it wouldn't do any harm to have a bigger reflection on that, Mark. So I think it's a well-founded question, and I think maybe we'll seek some comms input on that, Simon, and maybe talk to Daniel about that if that's okay. We have got some comms support now. So let's think about we can do that. Yeah, I'm
just thinking in terms of attracting people to come and use the shops and the facilities in town. Or just one other point, if I may. Sorry, I know there was also. I think you were going to talk to some of the local shopkeepers and see whether they would be willing to stay open during the light show performances to try and increase their trade. What sort of feedback did you get from that, please?
I will be talking to them. Obviously, a lot of them will be returning this week. Certainly, the independent shops, they will be returning from tomorrow. So I will be out very busily tomorrow, making sure that that is part of it, because that also involves the children's competition. So involving those as well, because I can't put anything in to a shop that's actually not going to be open.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter?
So we've got down to Santa's Grotto, but there's quite a few more updates, isn't there, Simon, that you wanted to express in your paper?
Yes, live music. We have, unfortunately, one of the fifth has pulled out. So I will. We have a busker that will be live music on the 12th that we're going through, and also I had a conversation on Friday with a gentleman from Bats, and they will be doing carols on the 19th, so they will actually be in, and I have suggested perhaps that so that people know where they're from, that they actually come dressed up. Obviously there's no panto this year, so watch this space.
Good idea.
Also, the Christmas stars are out. They started today on the Market Square, and they're available from the council office as well. The notice states that if they pick them up, that they drop them off either at the market to Colin, or to the town council office, and we'll make sure that they get onto the tree, and that will be running right the way through until the 22nd of December, which is different to previous years, because we obviously asked for them to be done prior to the Christmas light switch on, but this is going so that it's actually across the board for the month. And
in the interest of time, sorry, we have a lot of this in writing. Can I open up to members if there are specific questions on anything? Because I think the report is quite comprehensive and speaks for itself, I think, in many cases. Are there any further questions from members on this report and some of the specifics? And then we can take the conversation from there. Councillor Strawn, please.
Just a question on the Christmas stars. It's probably a bit onerous, but have the independent shops that will be reopening been given the opportunity for Christmas stars, or would that be inappropriate?
They haven't, but that is a possibility. I'll look into that.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, thank you. Just a very quick question. I'm fascinated to see the snow lodge for Santa's Grotto. I think sounds great. I just had a practical question about how that will work in relation to COVID, because obviously it's an enclosed space. So will the sides be open, the front be open? I just wondered how that's going to work, because obviously we're coming out of the lockdown, but and clearly a grotto is meant to be a sort of small enclosed space, but I just wanted to have some reassurance that how that would work, basically.
Yes, COVID has been taken into consideration. It is within one of our large gazebos.
Okay.
There is a door that there is no door to it. There will be a curtain. However, that will be pulled aside whilst people are in there. It will only be from the same household or bubble, and that there won't be any. We won't be taking any photos, but parents are more than welcome to take photos, as well as the way that the gazebo has been designed inside. Santa will stand, so there can be a photo taken with Santa, but socially distanced.
Okay, good. That sounds good. Thank you, Simon.
Councillor Thomas.
What sort of age group are we aiming at? Is it 5 and above, or younger, or what?
We've put it at up to 12.
Is that from 0?
So from 0 up to 12.
0 to 12. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? I have one question, and then I'll come to Peter in a moment. So, we have the communication which has gone out and the poster. I guess one of the things that we need to do is that was the post which went on social media at the start of this. It's about reminding people as well, the Thursday before the Friday, or the Friday morning before the light show, what's happening at the market each weekend, or what's happening with the light show each weekend. And that's just something that I think we need to follow through to make sure that our residents have maximum awareness of this. Sorry, I said it was a question. It's not a question, it's just a comment. Peter.
Just a brief statement. So members might be aware that we have procured 2 Christmas trees. We have the larger Christmas tree in the centre of town, which is 30 feet, which hopefully people will appreciate. And we have a smaller 20-foot Christmas tree. Simon, did you just want to highlight where we're intending to put the 20-foot Christmas tree, which we're trying to finalise at the moment? And that the objective here is to draw the community together. So, we have the kind of new Biggleswade, we have the old Biggleswade. We want our whole community to recognise that the council is trying to do its best for both parts of that and draw them together as one. So, Simon, do you want to do an update on where the other one is going?
Yes, we're hoping to be able to locate it on Central Square in King's Reach, so that that seems to be the most central focal point to be able to put it. We've been in contact, or Bob has been in contact with the developers and also the management company of the development, and we are looking to put a purpose-built structure at the bottom so that it can actually hold the tree securely. The one issue we have to have is, obviously, with the health and safety, we need to make sure that it is secure. So we're looking to actually bolt it into the ground so that it can be removed, but can be put there again in future years should we do that.
Okay.
That's a very good idea. That's a very good idea.
Can I just ask a question on that? Sorry, Councillor Fage. I mean, I think putting it in King's Reach is a great idea. My only concern is I think we as a council need to be clear that is this going to be a one-off, or are we now going to have an open-ended commitment to having one at King's Reach every year? And if I lived on Saxon, would I be annoyed that it's not Saxon at King's Reach? I mean, I'm not against the idea, don't get me wrong, but I just think you need to be extremely clear that we don't want to pit areas off against each other or whatever else it might be. And I think we just need to, that maybe needs to be reflected in a conversation or a possible budget cost if that's what people want in future. But we do need to think about it carefully rather than just coming to a very quick conclusion. That's all.
Peter?
We're very much aware of what you've just said. I could expand on it, but I think it's good practice to have a second tree, and we might want to rotate that within the community. But conscious of how big our town is now and how it will be developing in the future, we just want to try and reach out to everybody in the community. So, and the costs are minimal. If we negotiate well, the costs are minimal. It's good investment, I think.
Yeah. Any last comments, or are we okay to note the content of this report? Obviously, the conversation doesn't finish here. There's a lot going on through the month of December. So any comments that councillors have as and when things progress, you know, everyone's on email, can always pick up the phone and have that discussion. Are we okay to note this? I'm getting nods. Let's move on. Item 8B, parking orders, to receive a verbal update from the Assistant Clerk to review draft artwork for the new parking signage and to consider a Gantt chart for the plan of implementation. I don't think I've seen the draft artwork for the parking signage yet, but Philip, is this your update, I presume?
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I mean, first of all, as members will be aware, it's been a very drawn-out process. I mean, it started way back, I think, in March of this year, and been various hurdles we've had to go through, and COVID hasn't helped. But I do want to express my gratitude for the support that we have got from Central Beds, because I had not been experienced in dealing with parking orders before, because I had no previous knowledge of car parking from previous councils that I'd worked with. It's the first council that actually had a car park, has car parks. But we, after some sort of hiccups, managed to sort of get the ball rolling, and we are at the point where we now have the parking charges are live to go. If members refer to the Gantt chart, I mean, we could actually implement them tomorrow, but as the council has made a decision to suspend the parking charges until the end of this month, they will not basically come into effect until January. The parking times, which is a major change, has been the subject of a separate order. I thought they were going to be issued together, the notices, but they weren't. So we're on a 1 month delay behind where we thought we were going to be. But the notice of the change has been publicised. We, as members will see from the Gantt chart, have been advised by CBC that they need to be displayed in the car parks from Friday of this week, and they will be displayed until the end of the month. It's a slightly longer period than normal because we're taking into account the Christmas recess as well. 2 weeks after that, that's the maximum time. We have to, if there's been no objection, further objection, I should say, we can seal the order, and that will be implemented as soon as possible afterwards. I've put the beginning of February, but it may be before that. It won't be after that, I don't think. But essentially, by the middle of January, you know, God willing, we will have those orders finally signed off. They have to be signed and sealed by our own town clerk and the chairman of the council, because they are in effect they are our parking orders. But that's where we are. As far as artwork is concerned, there really isn't any artwork as such. There are notices, as I've said, and the formal notices will be displayed as from Friday. We have also, in the meantime, tried to seal off the parking machines because they're not in use at the moment. There was a shortage of covers for those, but I believe that's been resolved. So that's where we are, Mr. Chairman, and hopefully by the middle of next month, we will have actually sealed and signed off the whole process of getting the new times and also, of course, the new charges, which have already been approved.
Thank you for that update. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. A great update. Thank you. I confess to being a little bit uncertain as to what has already been consulted on and what is still to be consulted on. So I wonder if Philip could help me understand. So in particular, has the change to 2 hours rather than 1 hour of free parking, has that been consulted on, or is that still outstanding? I'm trying to understand whether it makes any sense to introduce some of the measures from the beginning of January, or whether the two sets of changes would be conflicting and result in two sets of changes to the signage. The other point I wanted to make is I think when we've discussed this before, there's been a feeling that the signage we have in our car parks is somewhat confusing and not very accessible, and therefore I think there was a request, I know I've certainly asked, that we review revised car park signage ahead of it being implemented and printed. Obviously, it's only really sensible to do that at a time when we're changing it, to see if we can make it a little bit easier for people to understand, potentially less confusing, potentially more accessible. So is that something we can do, please? I guess I was hoping we'd see that this evening without affecting the schedule. Thank you.
Simon?
Yes, thank you. The new artwork for the signage will be given fairly shortly. I'm waiting for the proofs to come back,
I think
that can be.
That's fine. I think the key thing is that it comes to members for the four-eyed check, because the current parking signage, as Councillor Knight says, is, well, let's make sure that this one comes back so that it's at least as good as what we currently have, if hopefully not a bit better, I guess. Councillor Pullinger, did you have a comment? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think Councillor Knight has probably covered most of the points. I think from the agenda item, I was very much expecting to see that artwork of the signs today, because that's what I read on the agenda. I've got a question about the Gantt chart specifically, which is a little bit confusing for me, in that it says the deadline for new parking charges implementation is the 1st of December, yet the blue box is in January, so I'm not quite sure which is which. And then, like Councillor Knight, I'm quite confused as to what exactly will the charges be on the 1st of January compared with, and the times on the 1st of January compared with what they will be on the 1st of February. And because it really doesn't make sense to have two changes, it's only going to cause confusion for residents. And so if that is going to result in two changes, then I guess ultimately I would be proposing that we don't charge anything, and we extend our fee period until the end of January, because we're still going to be in COVID restrictions for that period as well anyway. So that would probably make sense if the alternative is to have two changes.
Thank you. Philip, do you want to come back on that? I think there were questions about what's being consulted on, but then also Councillor Pullinger's point about sort of go live with the new orders.
Yes.
Some sense in what he's saying.
Yes, I'm very conscious of that. I mean, I think it was my understanding we were going to, through CBC, consult on the whole package, and that's not been the case, which has caused the confusion. If I can perhaps just deal with the implementation date being shown as January, I put that in as the early implementation because the council, you as members, have agreed and voted to suspend the parking charges completely to the end of this current month. So in fact, the implementation date would have been the 1st of December until the council made its decision to extend the free parking for and no parking restrictions for a further calendar month. So that's the reason why it's shown that way on the chart. I think that's the easy one. The orders in terms of free parking periods can be implemented at any time from now on. That's what's already been put through, and the police have given their no comment, no objection comment to us, and we don't have to do anything more. So it's within your hands as members to decide when you actually want to go live on those free periods and charging. The changes in the parking orders relating to the hours of opening and extending, the parking times and so forth is what is being consulted on now. And as I've said, the consultation period will end on the 1st of next month, and effectively we're told and advised by CBC that that once the draft notice has been advertised, which it has been, and the notices will go out on Friday in the car parks. At the end of that period, we have to make the order within 2 weeks of the order, 2 weeks after that, and then it can then be confirmed simply by, as I said, signature of the town clerk and the chairman of the council, and then I can then confirm with CBC what that final date will be. In fact, I will probably make that inquiry now that members have actually asked it, and then confirm back to you if you acceptable of that by an email within the next day or so. But essentially, I take the point that there may be an overlap if we have the charges coming in at one point and the extended periods of car parking coming in at another point. So I think what I would say, we're in the hands of members as to how you want to play this.
Okay, thank you, Philip. I'm going to make a brief comment and then I'll come to Councillor Straw and then Councillor Pullinger. I think we need to make sure that there is visibility of this consultation. It needs to be on the website. I can't see it there at the moment, and also via our social media pages. There will potentially be some feedback which we might want to take into account perhaps in early January when the consultation closes. That should give a window of time to finalise some of the paperwork and the signage as well, potentially ready for go live as suggested here, sort of early February time. But I don't want to put words into members' mouths. Let's see what others think. Councillor Strawn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it'd be crazy, if not stupid, to try and implement these things in two different lots. All it's going to do is cause confusion to people. Probably more signage will be needed, one for each set of changes. I think it'd be absolutely crazy to try and bring in one and then a month later bring in the other. All it's going to do is cause confusion, upset and general aggravation. So for what it's worth, my view is that we should actually implement the two changes at the one and the same time, at whatever date is appropriate. And I'm not sure from what Mr. Truppin's been saying that we can actually determine that exact date at the moment, because we're dependent on the orders actually being finalised, or the second lot of orders actually being finalised.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so I mean, I think ultimately I'm not sure I'm much wiser as to exactly which things have been consulted on in the first consultation versus the second. So I think it'd be really useful if the actual text of those consultations could be shared with members as soon as possible, really, so that we can get that understanding. And I think back to the point I made earlier and what Councillor Strawn says, I think I agree there should absolutely only be one implementation date, and I think whatever that implementation date is, we should retain what we have today, i.e. free parking until we can implement that change. I wouldn't want us to implement the old charges from the 1st of January just to change them again a couple of weeks later. So I don't know if I'm able to make that as a proposal here, or whether we need to bring that forward as a proposal to council. But I would like to propose that if I can.
I think that's fine. I realise this is an item for information, but you're certainly free to make that proposal. So the proposal, just let me summarise, is that we extend the free parking through January with the basically the view to transition straight to these new parking orders in February. Is that right, Councillor Pullinger?
Yes.
Okay, you're nodding your head. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
Yeah, I'd like to second that, please. And also, we're very keen that we drive to that 1st of February implementation date.
Okay. Any further comments? Councillor Russell.
I'd just like to say what I always say, like the ghost at the feast or whatever it is. That's another month's income gone, and it's another impact on our budget. But I think we've been forced into this situation because I have to agree that 2 implementation dates would not work. But I'm very unhappy that we're in this situation, and it's going to have a further impact on our budget.
Thank you. Okay. I think we have a proposal. It's been seconded. Are there any last comments? No. Okay. Well, we'll move to a vote then. So the proposal is that the view of this committee is that the dates as proposed by the Gantt chart should be simply what we are aiming for, and going live with those in early February as indicated, and that we stick with the status quo of no parking charges until that point. All those in favour, please. Anybody against? And abstentions? Okay, thank you. So that's carried. If we need to bring that to council, we can, but I think the views of members of this committee have been made quite clear, and I think there was a healthy majority for that position. Moving on then, item 8C, please. Market Working Group. The Town Centre Operations Manager to provide an update on the outcomes of the Market Working Group and for us to consider the Gantt chart. Simon.
Sorry, Councillor Page, before we move on to that, can I just ask a question? Could I ask that the clerk arranges for the signage on all of the parking meters, which I noticed was updated again a couple of days ago, from the 2nd to the 4th of January, is updated to the relevant Monday in February, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's a good point. Item 8C, Market Working Group. A verbal update on the first meeting. Simon, please.
Yes, thank you. The working group met in the middle of November. I presented an idea of what constitutes the market strategy and how we actually progress forward with that. A lot of the background, as you can see by the Gantt chart, a lot of the background work is due to be completed, so that can actually go to the working group so that they can ratify that as part of the ongoing strategy. What did come out of that was also the visits to other markets to show good practice and how we can arrange that. Now, obviously, I haven't done anything with regards to that until we know what was happening with regards to the lockdown and coming out of that, and as to what tier we actually came out or will be coming out into. Now, what may mean is that because of the number of the group, it may be that we will be split. We'll have to split into groups to actually be able to facilitate that, because we would need to be talking to the market managers and other officers with regards to that.
Okay. Is there anything further on in terms of the update from the working group?
Nothing at the moment.
No, okay. Peter, please.
Can I just make a recommendation? I just think that what Simon just described probably doesn't give as much detail, and we don't want to give too much detail, but I think the paper that he presented was a good start. It was well written, and I just think it might be nice if members agree that we, without giving too much of the detail, that we give them a sense about the direction other than what we've got here. I just think it's a really good start, and I just want to keep that momentum going. But I want to give everybody a sense that this is some really good work for Simon. Well done. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Comments, please, councillors. So, maybe if I start off on the Gantt chart, I think. So the market working group, if I read this Gantt chart correctly, and I guess the one thing that maybe concerns me slightly is that it looks like we're done by the end of February, which I think, given where our market currently is at, that's probably ambitious. We're keen to hit the accelerator in terms of changing things with the market, but realistically, there's going to be delivery that spans well into the new year. That's not us trying to drag things out, it's just a reality of our starting point. And I guess the other thing I'm maybe missing from the Gantt chart is that actual, I guess, some of that execution. And, you know, we can do the branding, we can do the policies, but actually there's going to need to come a point where we try to seek out new market traders, where we try to bring in new themes, where we really try to draw people in. And I think that's probably, some of that thinking comes through in the Gantt chart, but maybe we need to be a little bit clearer about just what those timelines look like and what exactly we're trying to accomplish, particularly through the spring, as we expect some of the restrictions to be lifted. Councillor Strawn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it'd be very useful if we could have sight of Simon's report, because the Gantt chart is just timescales. It doesn't actually give us any real detail. And I think it'd be helpful for those members who are not on the working group to actually see the report and have an understanding. And that includes not only members of this committee, but of the whole council. So if that could be arranged, I'd be very grateful.
Happy to do that.
Yeah. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Knight.
Yeah, I think this is a really positive start. I think, as you say, the Gantt chart, we need to look beyond the introduction of new policies to really develop the market, towards also regularly reviewing the performance of the market once we've tried a few things. And I may sound a bit like a broken record. I'm very keen that we identify some key performance indicators around our market, such as footfall, and we have the means to start measuring those as soon as possible, because we need to understand how well the market is frequented, how well it's used now, how many stalls we have. We need to be tracking those, and then look at how the performance of the market hopefully improves through the implementation of our measures. So if we don't have those KPIs in place, we don't have a baseline upon which we can see what works, what doesn't work. We can't expect everything we try to work, but we need to be, I think, fairly agile, be willing to try things and be able to measure in a very objective way what performs best for our town.
Yeah, I think let's minute that as well, because I think that's quite important. What does anyone have a view? I'm looking at Peter and Simon particularly, of when the next meeting of this working group should be. I mean, we've indicated that perhaps visits to other towns' markets are something that could be beneficial. I think there was a sense in the working group that that's very sensible. That's probably meeting 2. What after that do we think? Because I hope will be before this committee meets again. And what do you think we need to get from that meeting?
Where's Simon?
Yes, certainly. As soon as we've completed visits, that the group actually meet very quickly afterwards, so that we can actually see what the ideas are from that.
Okay. I hope outside of Christmas, Peter.
I'd like to suggest, and I'm conscious that there's a lot going on, as we say, and Christmas is almost upon us, but I think in an ideal world, because this is just such an important subject, I'd ideally like us to meet once a month, to be honest with you. Yeah, and both to review progress and to see some sense of momentum. And I think there's plenty there to do, but we can get on and do something each month. And I think because of the importance, we should do that. So every month, I think.
Very good idea. Let's
Agree.
do that as well, please. Okay. Any last comments? Councillor Pullinger, please. Sorry, missed you.
Yes, I'd just like to agree with Peter on that. I think a monthly meeting would definitely be beneficial. I think there's been a lot that should have been delivered from the Gantt chart by the end of November and some things in December. So I would hope that actually if we could try and schedule something before the end of this month at some point. Obviously, we have got the Christmas break at that point, but I'm sure those of us on the working group can probably find a few hours one evening or a couple of hours one evening to hold a meeting, hopefully. So yeah, if we could do that, that would be great.
Perfect. Any last comments? No? Okay, thank you for that update. Very comprehensive, and I think we have a good way forward. Bearing in mind we have only met once, but hopefully early spring we can start to see some certainly super tangible results. So 8D, A boards to receive a verbal update on the implementation of the A boards policy. So very mindful. It's worth stressing in advance. A lot of time has been, and I should have stressed this at the beginning of the meeting, a lot of time of council staff has been taken up, particularly for Remembrance Sunday and the Christmas lights, with things chopping and changing. So things like A boards are obviously slightly secondary to that, but important nonetheless. So Simon, do we have an update on the A boards policy?
Yes.
Last month.
Thank you. Obviously the policy went live as agreed on the 1st of November. Unfortunately, we went into a second lockdown, so some of the businesses were actually closed through this period. So far, we've received 25 applications. So we'll be going round and ratifying those applications, agreeing where the boards will be, and a license being devised, so that we can ensure that the policy is followed and that we adhere to the Highways Act. So obviously there are some businesses that haven't applied yet. So I will be just giving a gentle reminder that the policy is in force now.
Great, thank you. Any comments from councillors? Councillor Knight.
I was just wondering. Obviously, now the policy is being enforced. How many rogue A boards have now been removed to storage, awaiting collection, please?
One has been removed, which I've been able to contact, and they will be collecting it from us in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, that's brilliant! Thank you.
I think that was one of the long-standing serial offenders who is not even a business in our town, let alone in our town centre. It's a show for one outside Lloyd's, I think, which is great. Any further comments? No. Okay. So I think we can perhaps revisit this at the next town centre management committee meeting. It sounds. I was in one of our local shops the other day, and they mentioned the A boards policy to me, and that they had been issued. So visibility of it had been given, and they'd been asked to apply. So it's clear that that's getting through to shopkeepers, which is a good thing. And 25 boards, well positioned, I think, can really help our town centre as opposed to what we have at the moment. And let's make sure. I guess the one thing is, if we do have serial offenders, I won't name any names, but Iceland, if they are not coming back, then I guess we need to think of ways of pursuing that potentially beyond the gentle nudge. Councillor Knight again.
Sorry, very slightly off topic. So obviously with the decluttering, I think the town generally looks much tidier and less cluttered. Obviously, we've had a few A boards that have been chained to the bicycles which are used for parking, but I've also noticed a few old bicycles chained to said bicycles, and if appropriate, what's the process to get those removed if they've been there for a long time, please?
Simon?
Sorry, my understanding of the bicycles is that they will be removed from the racks, and we have been asked if we will secure them till such time as the owners request them back. But they have been there for some months and not been taken away.
Thank you. It'd be great if they could be taken away then, please. Thank you.
Any last comments, Peter?
Just to be clear, Simon, my understanding is that some bikes have already been taken away, aren't they? And they're in storage, aren't they?
I will stand back to that.
Okay.
I don't know.
To be clear, Councillor Knight, they have already, I think 4 bikes have already been removed. So yes, and they are in storage, yes.
Perfect. That's great. Okay. I'll move on then to, I think we'll revisit this in a couple of months' time, because obviously this is an ongoing thing with plenty of moving parts and literally dozens of stakeholders. So it looks like good progress, particularly when resources are tight at the moment. So item 8E, street furniture, to receive a verbal update and schedule for the bench refurbishment project. Peter.
Okay, so this is probably a Bob and I conversation. I think the bench refurbishment, as I understand it, has been going on for some while now. The council was originally given 5k of 106 money as a contribution to its future costs associated with this. We have 36 benches to refurbish. Bob can give me some additional detail in a minute, but we have gone out and sought some quotations in regard to trying to get the work done, because it just isn't realistic to get our own public realm people to do that volume within a reasonable timescale. And I think just getting those benches in a nice, better position than they currently are will make a big difference to the way that the town looks. Bob can give you some other information about the quotations we've got in a minute, but fundamentally, the best quotation that we do have, which I've decided to pursue, is around about £20,000. This is from a specialist bench provider. I've spoken and we have additional 106 money coming to recognise the difference between the original contribution they gave us and the actual cost that we're likely to get. And because this is effectively 106 money, then and when we look at the financial regulations, it's fine for me to try and get that, to get that effectively working quickly and to try and get that in place quite quickly. There's a site visit which Bob can talk about in a minute, which is going to take place with the provider to make sure that they are clearly aware of all the work that needs to be done. They're very also conscious of when they take the benches away, that we need to make sure that area is safe for people walking by. So Bob, do you just want to talk about the process that we're going to do? And they're going to be doing an individual assessment of each bench to look at the wood that needs to be replenished. Is that right? Yep.
Yep, that's correct. Yep, thank you, Peter. Yeah, we're going to meet the chap down there this week. We're going to walk around all the 36 benches just to see the conditions of them. They're going to make sure when they take them away, the upright screws will be covered and barricaded off. Then hopefully we'll have a walk around, check every bench, and then we can go ahead, possibly next week, and give the go ahead and get it started. He's looking at doing, not taking 9 benches at a time in batches, and he's looking at like a 2 to 3 week return. So you're probably looking overall 2.5 to 3 months.
The purchase order is going through next week, so we should be getting our monies should be recompensed fairly quickly. Did you want to talk about colour, Bob, just so that people are aware of what's happening?
Yeah, we're keeping it like for like. So it will be, it's called an olive grey, which is that light green, because it matches in with all the street lights and the furnishings. Sorry, Peter.
So all I was going to say that there's probably 2 options there. This hasn't been finalised. So we can either go with what we currently do, or it may be that we go with black and gold as being an option, but be interested to see what members' views are in regard to that.
Yeah. Okay, let's open to the floor. Thank you. I think that's a very useful update, because a few things have obviously changed since we discussed a couple of months ago. Councillor Alban, please.
Thank you. Just wondering, when the benches are removed in groups of 9. Is it? I'm hoping it's not going to be one particular area that's targeted and 9 benches taken away, and that the 9 are taken from different parts of the town, so that there's sufficient benches in one particular area. Is that right?
Probably a good idea. Peter, Bob, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I was looking at possibly taking every other bench, so leaving a gap so there's every other bench, so there's not clearing a whole area.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea, because if we were to lose all of the benches, say outside Seasons Fruit and Veg and Harold's Opticians, that suddenly that looks a bit bizarre when you've got all the other benches up the other end.
Absolutely.
Very valid point. Good point. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So I think it's absolutely right that we do this, and it's absolutely right that we do it properly and spend the right amount of money to make sure that we do that. I just want to seek some clarification around the governance of this and in terms of the financial regulations. So with it being over 15,000, my understanding would be that it should need the quotes reviewed by council and approval by council before it can the purchase order can be raised. Can you just confirm that my understanding is correct or correct?
I have a different understanding. Yes, Councillor Pullinger. So I spoke to the I took advice from Philip in regard to financial regulations. I also spoke to the mayor and deputy mayor connected with this as well. Effectively, we're not spending our own money, so it's a direct like for like. And because we're spending 106 money, the general sense was, let's get some impetus to this. Let's make it happen as soon as we can. We're not effectively spending our money. It's a direct. The money's going in, the money's going out. So that was the sense that we can. In this sense, the financial regulations connected to spending our own money don't apply. That was the sense. Section 106.
Thank you for the clarity. Any further comments? Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Woodhead, please.
Yeah, it was just a couple of points really. One is just to echo the point about the benches in particular areas. I mean, I'm conscious that we've just had a very long conversation about events in the market square and all the rest of it. And I think if anything, they probably ought to be the last to be done, not least that people will be going around the shops around Christmas and maybe into the new year and stuff. So I don't know if, again, if that can be thought about in the schedule of works. I appreciate Bob Catchpole's idea of every other one, but it's whether there are perhaps others in the more further reaches of the town centre or in town that can maybe be done first and then work your way in. So I think that would be one thought. And then the other one, I mean, I noticed Peter's comment about the sort of design and the colour of the benches. Whilst a like for like would look fresher, I do think a black and gold would also look quite nice too, and give a more of a, I know, heritage feel perhaps to the town square. So if there is that opportunity, then that's good. But equally, if people feel it needs to be a like for like, then I'm happy with that too. But it does seem a good opportunity to, refresh and clean those up really.
I'll bring in Councillor Knight and then we can come back to.
Thanks. Yeah, really delighted this is happening because the benches are quite tatty in places. Just to also echo that point, quite often I go for a lunchtime walk. Quite frequently, all of the benches, even on chilly days, are in use around the War Memorial outside Seasons Fruit and Veg, that area there. So whether it makes sense to try to optimize it so that those ones are there as much as possible, and maybe some of the less well used benches are the ones where they're absent for the period and the last to be restored, whether that would make sense.
I think that's a fair point, particularly given I'll come to Councillor Alban in a moment, particularly given that some of the most how shall I put it, awful looking benches are ones which are not in the town, not right in the town centre. So they're under trees, for example, outside the New Inn, and there's one outside Lilby opposite Jones's Cafe. They're in an even worse state, so they might actually take a little bit longer. So maybe they could be the ones that are done first in the lead up to Christmas when we're expecting a few people in town. Just to add one point to what Councillor Woodhead said, and then I'll come to Councillor Alban. I think one of the things to be aware of when we're thinking about colours is black is much easier to match if we want to, if they get scratched or the paint starts to wear away. And I think that's probably one of the problems that we have at the moment with some of our street furniture is we can't really match some mid shade of green in the way that we could match black. So that I'm putting that out there, but for members to comment. Councillor Alban, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm kind of agnostic on colour schemes, but there are black. There are items of black street furniture already there. The bins are black, for instance, and they're adjacent to the benches in any case. So black would probably go fine. But yeah, I'm not really fussed.
Let's not do a colour scheme based around what colour our bins are. But I totally take your point.
Well, yeah.
That's a fair comment. And Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. Very much. I think black and gold would be a much better contrast. The olive is green is a bit anemic in my view, and I think it would be I think they would actually add a bit of character. At the moment, they are a little bit bland, I think, with the olive green. So I'd be more than happy to see black and gold. I think it'd be, for any number of reasons, it'd be an improvement.
Are there any further comments on this? Do we want to take a vote on what colour we prefer, or am I getting nods on that, Peter?
What I was going to say was that perhaps I didn't stress the point well enough, but obviously doing 36 benches is going to make a dramatic improvement. What I'm really pleased for a change is that we're not using a general builder. Yeah, we're not using somebody who's just going to make good here. We're using a specialist, and there's definitely some advantages to having a specialist. Yeah, so I expect these to look exemplary when they're finished. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. I think everyone is appreciative, particularly Councillor Foster, who I know has joined specially, has cared about this for a long time, and it's important because we love our town centre and we want it to. It deserves the best. Councillor Foster.
Yes, indeed. Very good news, and it's going to make a big difference to the town centre. One point that I have heard raised elsewhere, but I will mention at this meeting, that not everybody has been universally in favour of the decluttering, and we need to make sure that people understand that the benches going away are not part of the decluttering process. But excellent news on the benches.
Very good. I think that's noted. Thank you. Absolutely. Do we want to? I think maybe it wouldn't be a final decision, but maybe if we could take an indicative sort of vote on colour, that would just give the clerk a sense of what we should be going for. So the options are sort of green, similar to what we currently have, and a black and gold, which would be a bit different. Peter, do you want to just comment on that?
Right, can I just, sorry to be pedantic, but I think actually this is an important vote because I want the benches to work to start ASAP. So I think what you vote on today will be what actually happens in reality. So yeah.
It's me. I don't think we've ever had to take a decision like this before where something happens immediately. So that's not a criticism. It's just a nice thing to have. I noticed both Councillor Fosters have joined. I don't.
Any reason you think that might be the case, Councillor Fay?
Well, let's see which way the vote goes, and then I'll decide. See how things go. Okay, so we're going to vote on green first. So all those in favour of matching a sort of similar shade of green to what we currently have, please show now. Oh wow, this is an incredible moment. All those in favour of sort of a black and gold to something different to match the bins. Brilliant! Wow. It's a moment of rare consensus around something which we're going to deliver immediately. Super. Thank you ever so much. Councillor Alban, did you have a
Yeah, I just want to say I remain agnostic. Thank you.
Okay, that's all right. It's the big decisions that sometimes get to us as councillors. Councillor Frank Foster.
Can I just make the point that I think it's a good decision, but any other green street furniture also needs to be brought into line with the colour scheme.
I think we can think about that in the book of work going forward, and I think this is good collaboration between PLOS and TCM. Mark, Councillor Knight, please.
I was just going to add, it's just as well we don't have any members of the Green Party, and we managed to avoid debates on whether it should be blue or red.
Glorious. Good. Or other colours are available. Yellow, but that would just attract wasps and things. We don't want that. Okay, so I think we have a very clear view of where we're going. Thank you ever so much, Peter and Bob and Simon, for your work on this. It will be a good result for the town. And I think residents will thank us for it. Moving on then. So I think we're on item 8F. So public conveniences, to receive a verbal update on progress with defining the requirements for upgrades to the town centre public conveniences. Simon, Peter.
Yeah, do you want to start, Simon, and then I'll support. Yeah, go for it.
Yes. Obviously, because there's been a lot going on over the last month or so, the specifications have been drawn up, and they will be going out to organisations to put their quotes forward. These quotes will then go forward to either the next TCM or a full council for a decision to be made as to what we do. Whether we go for looking at whether we take we do a full refurbishment, or we actually just change the furniture. The options will be there.
Thank you.
Simon, sorry to interrupt, Chair, but Simon, would you mind also just talking to members about our lighting and noise issues in the public toilets?
Yes, I had a conversation with Neil Cartwright, who is the surveyor for Central Beds for their assets. There was a complaint that has been made regarding a almost like a low frequency buzzing noise that was constant. What has actually been identified is that it's actually the extractor fan for the public conveniences. Now, the public conveniences are on, their lights and the extractor fan are on 24/7, and they have been since Central Beds actually commissioned Century House, so some 20 odd years. So no wonder the extractor fan is actually making a consistent noise. I've received a quote from our electrician, and I'm actually in discussion with Neil Cartwright as to where we go forward with this, as to whether we pay or whether it is actually Central Beds, because it is a possibility of an issue.
I think our conversation earlier, Simon, was I would encourage them to pay and not us. Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you for that update. I think one thing that came from the meeting last 2 months ago was we as a council have always had, we know that we hope that the future of Century House is uncertain. None of us, I won't speak for the whole council or for the committee, but it's not everyone's favourite building. So I think it was a point at which Councillor Knight made that we should be looking at some kind of, if we're having an upgrade, sort of the 3 to 5 year stretch rather than a 10 to 20 year style investment, which would obviously be a lot more. So I think that's something to be cognizant of when we're defining the specification. Are there any further comments on the public conveniences, anybody? No? Okay, so thank you for that update. We look forward to seeing that at either a future council meeting or a future town centre management meeting. I'll move on then. So item 8G, CCTV, to receive a verbal update from the chairman. So this is about the crime working group. I stressed a few moments ago when discussing A boards about particularly staff capacity around a lot of time taken up around Remembrance Sunday and getting some of the Christmas offering organised. So that has had to take precedent over other activities. The CCTV is is still a very, very important thing that we need to get sorted. However, it has just had to wait a little bit. So my update is quite simple, really. The working group will need to meet. We have a crime working group, and it will need to meet again, and it will need to meet again soon. But there is a little bit of legwork to be done prior to that, so that the working group has something to discuss. And I've written down a brief list here of what it is, and I will obviously discuss this with the clerk and Simon separately about when we might be able to have visibility of some of this. But some of the things that we need to see are, we need a view of our current cameras and the coverage areas particularly, so which parts of the town centre fall into the parts that are captured by the camera, if you like. Suggestions for new and extra coverage areas, if indeed there are suggestions. Recommendations around the potential walkie-talkies for town centre businesses, which will connect to the CCTV control room and therefore to Beds Police as well. And then potentially options over the new cameras and the prices that might be associated with those. So there's a bit of legwork to be done, and hopefully members understand that that was not something that that could be done particularly over November and leading up to December, when we were trying to pull last bits together to get the Christmas offering and the Remembrance Sunday sorted. This has not fallen off the agenda, and we will discuss this and we will address it, but I think this is a conversation which intensifies particularly in the new year. So Peter, Simon, did anybody have any comments on that? We don't have a date for the next working group yet, but it will hopefully, as things ease up slightly and we get a bit more time, we can start to address this in a bit more detail. Is that okay?
A very quick word to say that everything you've just said, I think, is within the specification, and what I understand is what fundamentally what we need to deliver on. So yeah, it is helpful to hear it again. Yeah.
Great. No, that's fine. I wanted to keep this on the agenda because it is a very, very important challenge for our town centre. Any comments from members? No. Okay. So item 9, public open session to adjourn for 15 minutes to allow members, to allow people to address the council. 1 3-minute slot. Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask first of all about the public conveniences. When I've been on holiday and in other places, they seem to have these toilets where you put your coin in one end and then you do what you got to do, you wash your hands, you come out the other end. It's just a single toilet. And I'm wondering if we've looked at having maybe 2 or 3 of those, because you don't get people loitering around, you don't get people with their syringes and all the rest of it. It is just public toilets. And I wondered if it might be an idea to have a couple of those rather than have this cubicle and the sinks and the hand basins and all the rest of it that are available for vandalism and for people to gather in, which we wouldn't necessarily want to do. I wondered if you thought about that at all. I don't know how difficult they'd be to locate on the existing location, but I thought that might be a more hygienic and a more user-friendly and town centre friendly alternative. The other thing I wanted to ask about, when we were talking about, and I think, Simon, it's got to be at least 2 years ago, about things that we could have in the market square, maybe on a Sunday. I know Sundays are difficult, but we were talking about having music in the square and having local musicians and music groups coming down. The idea would be that people would come down to the square, have a newspaper, buy a coffee, sit and listen, and make a sort of a light entertainment area there. Not any particular music, different sorts of music, but get local performers involved and also provide a bit of entertainment on a Sunday morning. And going on with that, there is, I think there was anyway, Le Rock, L-E-R-O-C, and they're in Bedford, and they do this very vigorous dancing and jiving, and they at one point wanted to come and demonstrate outside the White Hart. And I'm wondering if that might also be suitable for a Sunday morning or a Saturday morning or whatever, just so that you've got a bit of live entertainment and a bit of live music there. I'm sure there's lots of schools would be welcoming the opportunity, and I think, if I'm right, Stratton School have still got their jazz band. It just as a variety, and I'm not sure how much organisation it would need, but if you're just going to have a performers area for musicians, I can't see that would be an awful burden for people, you know, for the council to organise, or your street people, public realm workers. I don't know what you think about any of those suggestions. Thank you, Chair.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. I think that's certainly something to consider, particularly the input from live music, etc. Something particularly for the market working group to think about on Saturdays, see how that works, and then think whether it's something we could extend into Sundays as well. And you've given some very good ideas there, which I think can definitely be taken on board as we edge back to some kind of normality in the new year, definitely. I don't know whether Peter and Simon have any thoughts on that, and then also the question on the public conveniences and coins to enter the loos.
I'll let Simon answer the question connected to the live music. I mean, certainly as somebody who's spent a lot of his working life in central London until recently, those toilets are frequently around, and they seem to work fine. And as you say, you walk in and you walk out. It's a very small area, so from a volume perspective, it's kind of easy to situ. But I mean, it's just something that we need to think as one option, isn't it? And we need to think about whether or not that would fit with us. So I don't think it's a yes no answer. It's just something that we need to be conscious of or cognizant of, and look at all the variety of options going forward. So, Simon, I don't know what your view is on it.
Certainly something to take into consideration. It's a different aspect look of what we currently have. So yes, certainly, if I can, I'll get the ideas of where you've seen them, Councillor Ramsey, and then I'll investigate. Regarding the live events, music, etc., that is something that we're looking at as part of the events, as an ongoing thing through the year.
I think that's one of the classic things that crosses somewhere between the events and the market working group. So well, now the events working group and the market working group. So there's a fine line to be trod there, but important for both of them, I think. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So I've had a similar thoughts. It does seem that 99% of the time we probably have excess toilet capacity in terms of the number of units, if you can talk about it that way. Obviously, I've not been in the ladies, but generally one accessible, and then several units of toilet in each male and female. I think most of the time you could probably get away with just 2 accessible cubicles that could be used by everybody. But the caveat to that is, with the ambition to have more events in the market square and larger scale events, you have to make sure you have enough capacity for the 1% as well. And if we don't consider that, we end up having to rent portaloos in and things like that. So that's just something to perhaps bear in mind.
Yes, absolutely. Councillor Pullinger, please.
Yes, I mean, I think I've informally, when we've been talking about this ourselves, suggested a similar thing to Councillor Ramsey, certainly for the future when we come to hopefully be building new public toilets when Century House is no longer there, purpose-built wise. I think it's definitely the way forward. If it's feasible to do it as part of this refurbishment, then absolutely, I think it's a good idea.
Something to explore, and we look forward to that item coming back. Councillor Strawn.
A point of order, Chairman. This is the public open session, not a session for committee members to come back and have their say. Councillor Ramsey, in this case, is a member of the public, and therefore I feel entitled to speak. But we shouldn't reopen a debate that we've already had this evening. Perhaps in future we could stick to it being strictly for members of the public and not for councillors to come back and have their say, notwithstanding the fact I'm doing so on a point of order.
No problem. No, I think that's fair comment. But the public conveniences are a matter of massive interest. So if Councillor Knight and Pullinger have something to add, then that's okay. But I think Simon has heard loud and clear what Councillor Ramsey said as a member of the public, and something that we can look into when this comes back in January and February for further discussion, which we can all engage in then in line with standing orders. Okay, so I think that's everything. We have no exempt items. Are there any last comments from staff or from members? If not, we will close the meeting. No? Okay, well, thank you everyone. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining, and we we'll reconvene in a couple of months' time. Lots of things to be getting on with, working groups, etc. Please do reach out if there's anything town centre specific that you'd like to talk about. Always happy to discuss. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.